I never thought I'd be the guy in a situation like this. My name is Jake, and I've been married to Emily for almost 7 years. We had what I thought was a solid relationship. We laughed together, took trips, and shared dreams of a family. That was until the laughter faded and I started sensing something was off. It all began subtly. Emily, who used to share everything with me, became distant. I noticed her scrolling through her phone more often and laughing at jokes I wasn't in on. I tried to shrug it off, thinking maybe she was just busy with work or that her friends had been more active in her life. But soon, those little moments turned into late nights out with the girls, and she'd come home reeking of cheap cologne that definitely wasn't mine. At first, I confronted her about the late nights and she'd brush me off, her voice laced with irritation. "You're being paranoid, Jake. You know how it is with friends. Just chill out." I wanted to believe her, but I felt a gnawing feeling in my gut every time she walked out the door. One evening, I decided to surprise her with a nice dinner. I made her favorite dish, set up the table with candles, and waited. When she walked in, she was stumbling a bit, her makeup smudged and her dress a little too revealing. My heart sank and the smell of another man's cologne hit me like a ton of bricks. But I kept my composure, asking her sweetly about her night as she shuffled around the house, completely oblivious to my turmoil. But here, where things took a darker turn. While she was in the shower, I picked up her phone to send a quick text to her. I figured I'd let her know dinner was ready when I saw a message pop up from a guy named Mark. I shouldn't have opened it, but I did. The message was a flirty exchange, and it was clear they were planning to meet up. The words "I can't wait to feel you again" burned into my mind. It felt like a knife twisting in my gut. I put the phone down, heart racing, and tried to breathe. I had just discovered that my wife was cheating on me. I felt like the floor had dropped out from beneath me. My mind raced with thoughts. Who was this guy? How long had this been going on? All those late nights, all those excuses suddenly made sense, and I was left reeling. When Emily came out, I confronted her. My voice was icy, tightly controlled, but it didn't matter. The moment she saw the look on my face, her composure shattered. "What's wrong, Jake?" she asked with an innocent smile that quickly turned to confusion as I tossed her phone on the table. "Care to explain this?" I spat, pointing at the screen. Her face flushed, and for a moment she was silent. The laughter that once filled our home turned into an awkward, suffocating silence. Her response was a mix of anger and defiance. "You don't understand. It's not what it looks like. Mark is just a friend." The lies spilled out of her mouth effortlessly, and I felt the rage boiling inside me. I wanted to scream, to shake her, but instead I stood there, feeling like an idiot for believing her for so long. As she rambled on about how it was just a phase and how she loved me, how she would never do anything to hurt me, I felt the weight of betrayal settle into my bones. Each word felt like an insult, a slap in the face. I had trusted her. I had built my life around her. And now I was facing the truth of her deceit, the reality of a shattered marriage. I took a deep breath, trying to gather my thoughts, but all I could feel was a whirlwind of anger and heartbreak. I realized in that moment that the woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone who reveled in her lies. The thought consumed me. I was done playing the fool. This was just the beginning of what would be a long and painful journey toward my own truth. I didn't know how I would confront the reality of my marriage, but I knew one thing: I wouldn't let her laughter be the last. The days that followed the confrontation were a blur. My mind was a storm of emotions: anger, disbelief, and overwhelming sadness. Emily tried to act like everything was fine, but I could see the cracks in her facade. She would walk past me with a forced smile, and I could feel the tension hanging in the air. It was suffocating. I felt like I was living with a stranger. I spent hours lying awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying that night over and over again. I couldn't wrap my head around how my life had come to this. I thought about all the moments we shared, the dreams we had, and all the times I had chosen to trust her. It felt like a sick joke. And the worst part, I felt powerless. I wanted to scream, to shake her, and demand she give me back the life I thought we shared. Instead, I turned inward. I began to devise a plan, not just to confront her again, but to take control of my life. I knew I couldn't let her continue to manipulate me. I started gathering evidence of her betrayal. I began taking notes, writing down every late night, every suspicious text message I could find on her phone when she wasn't around. I even enlisted the help of a friend, Mark, who had his own suspicions about her. One evening, I was scrolling through old photos on my phone, trying to remember happier times, when I stumbled upon a picture of Emily and me from a vacation we took a couple of years ago. We looked so in love, so happy. The stark contrast to my current reality hit me hard, but then something else caught my eye, a text message alert from Emily's phone that popped up on my screen. I had left my phone unattended, and she had accidentally sent a message before I could unlock it. Curiosity gnawed at me, and I opened her phone to read the message. It wasn't intended for me, but it read, "Can't wait to see you tonight, babe. I'll make sure Jake is out of the house." My stomach churned. Babe. I couldn't believe how casual she was with this guy. It was a dagger to my heart, but also a motivation to follow through with my plan. That night I confronted her again. I told her I knew about her plans, how she was still seeing Mark, and how she had lied to my face. Her reaction was predictable. She went from defensive to furious in seconds. "You're being crazy, Jake. You're reading too much into this. I told you it was just a friend." But this time I didn't back down. I told her I had proof, that I had been keeping tabs on her. Her face went pale, and what followed was a flurry of excuses. She claimed it was just a phase she was going through, that she felt trapped in our marriage, and that Mark was just someone who listened to her, a friend who made her feel alive again. I would have laughed at the absurdity of it all if it hadn't hurt so much. As I listened to her excuses, I felt a mix of anger and pity wash over me. Who was this person? This was not the Emily I had loved. I realized that I was done with her lies. I had to do something that would show her the weight of her betrayal, but I didn't want to stoop to her level. I needed to execute my plan with precision. I began feeding her information, little lies that would lead her to believe I was oblivious, that I was still the same trusting husband she had cheated on. I wanted to see how far she would go, how deep her lies ran. I acted like everything was normal, planning a surprise dinner for her to keep her on her toes. I needed to see Mark to confront him, but I had to be smart about it. Over the next few days, I plotted. I reached out to Mark through social media, pretending to be someone else. I asked if he wanted to grab a drink sometime. To my surprise, he agreed. I felt a mix of adrenaline and nerves coursing through me. I wasn't sure what would happen when I saw him, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let Emily get away with this. I spent the next few nights making arrangements, securing a spot at a local bar where we'd meet. The anticipation was almost unbearable. I could feel the weight of my emotions building to a boiling point. I wanted justice, and I wanted Emily to see what she had lost. I was ready to stand up for myself and reclaim the parts of my life she had stolen. As the day of the confrontation with Mark approached, I felt an odd sense of calm wash over me. I was taking control, and that felt empowering. I was done being the victim in my own story. That day would change everything, and I would finally have the answers I needed. The night of the confrontation with Mark arrived sooner than I expected. I spent the day with a pit in my stomach, going over every possible outcome in my mind. Would he deny it? Would he care that he was sleeping with a married woman? I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking into a lion's den, but I needed to do this. I wanted closure, and I wanted to confront the man who had become the embodiment of my wife's betrayal. I arrived at the bar early, settling into a booth in the corner where I could keep an eye on the entrance. The dim lights and the low hum of conversation provided a false sense of comfort, but my heart raced with every tick of the clock. I took a deep breath, reminding myself of my purpose. I wasn't just there to confront Mark. I was there to reclaim my life. When Mark finally walked in, I recognized him immediately. He was tall, with a confident swagger and a cocky grin plastered across his face. He looked like someone who thought he was invincible. That made my blood boil. I waved him over, putting on a casual facade, but I could feel the tension in my shoulders. "Hey man, glad you could make it," I said, forcing a smile as he slid into the booth across from me. He looked genuinely pleased to see me, completely oblivious to the storm about to hit him. "Yeah, heard you wanted to talk," he replied, leaning back in his seat with an air of nonchalance. "What's up?" I leaned in, lowering my voice. "I know about you and Emily. I know you've been sleeping together." The words rolled off my tongue with a mix of satisfaction and rage. I watched as his expression shifted from confusion to understanding. For a moment the cocky grin faltered and I felt a rush of triumph. His response was a laugh, but it lacked sincerity. "Come on, man, you can't be serious. Emily wouldn't cheat on you." The dismissal stung, but I pressed on, unwilling to let him dismiss me so easily. "I've got proof, Mark. Messages, plans. She's been lying to both of us." I watched as his bravado began to crumble. The laughter faded, replaced by a look of uncertainty. "You're just another guy in her life, and she's playing you just like she's played me." His face twisted in anger, and he shot back defensively. "You don't know anything about our relationship, Jake. We have something real." The desperation in his eyes revealed just how far gone he was, and I couldn't help but feel a mix of pity and disdain. "Real? Is that what you call it? You think you can build something with a woman who lies to her husband?" I leaned back, letting his words hang in the air. The silence between us was suffocating, and I could see the tension building in him. "The heart wants what it wants," he muttered, almost as if trying to convince himself. "Emily and I connect on levels you wouldn't understand." The arrogance in his words ignited a fire within me. "You think you're special, huh? You're just a convenient escape for her. She's using you to fill a void she created in our marriage. When she gets bored, you'll be nothing but a memory." Mark's expression shifted again, this time to something darker. "You don't know her like I do. She's not just some woman, she's amazing." His voice rose, drawing the attention of nearby patrons. I could see that he was struggling to defend something that was already crumbling. "Was amazing," I shot back, my anger boiling over. "You think you're some kind of hero swooping in to save her. You're nothing but a pawn in her game." He opened his mouth to say something, but I didn't give him the chance. I pulled out my phone and displayed the messages between him and Emily. "These are the words she sent you, Mark. She's told you exactly what she wants you to hear while she sits at home with me, pretending everything's fine. You're just a distraction." The color drained from his face as he read the screen, the laughter from earlier replaced by stunned silence. I could see the gears turning in his mind as reality set in. "Jake, I didn't know," he stuttered, but I wasn't ready to let him off the hook. "You didn't care to know, did you? You were too busy chasing after someone else's wife." I leaned forward, making sure. He felt the weight of my words. "This isn't just about you and Emily. This is about a life you've disrupted. You've hurt someone who trusted you, and for what? A quick thrill." He looked away, a hint of guilt flashing across his face, but I wasn't done. "You need to walk away from this, Mark. Let her realize what she's losing. She'll regret it, and you know it. You're not the answer to her problems, you're just part of the mess." Mark's silence spoke volumes. I could see the realization washing over him, and while it felt good to finally confront him, I knew I had to follow through with my plan. I had to let Emily see the consequences of her actions, to make her understand that she couldn't just play with people's hearts. After I finished my drink and exchanged a few more tense words, I stood up to leave, feeling a sense of closure. I had confronted the man who had taken my wife away from me, and now it was time to take the final steps to reclaim my life. As I walked out of the bar, I felt the weight lifting from my shoulders. It was time to face Emily again, this time with the knowledge that I wasn't going to allow her to manipulate me any longer. I would show her the truth of what she had lost, and I was ready to confront her one last time. When I got home that night, I found Emily sprawled on the couch, scrolling through her phone, oblivious to the chaos that had unfolded. The dim light from the lamp cast shadows on her face, and for a moment I felt a pang of regret. I remembered how much I loved her, how many dreams we had built together, but that was before the lies, before the betrayal. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation that lay ahead. "Hey you," she said, looking up with a forced smile. "How was your evening?" I felt a surge of anger bubble beneath the surface as I approached her. "We need to talk." My voice was steady, but the tension in the air crackled like electricity. Emily frowned, sensing the shift in my tone. "About what?" I took a seat in the armchair opposite her, my heart pounding. "I talked to Mark tonight." Her eyes widened, and for a split second I saw panic flicker across her face. "What do you mean? Why would you talk to him?" "Because I needed to understand the level of your betrayal, Emily." I leaned forward, locking eyes with her. "I needed to know just how deep this goes." She sat up straight, her expression shifting from confusion to anger. "You have no right to talk to him. He's my friend. You're just being paranoid. Paranoid." I laughed, the bitterness cutting through me. "I have the texts, Emily. I know about your plans. I know about the nights you've spent with him. You think I'm paranoid. You've been lying to my face." Her defenses went up immediately. "You don't understand. I was trying to find myself. Our marriage lost its spark and Mark made me feel alive again." The words were a gut punch and I felt my breath hitch. "Alive?" I challenged, raising an eyebrow. "Is that what you call it, betraying your husband? Breaking the trust we built together? Jake, you don't get it. I felt so alone. You were so wrapped up in your work and I just needed someone to talk to." Her voice trembled as she spoke, but I could see through her tears. This wasn't about loneliness. This was about her selfish choices and the mess she had created. "Don't you dare put this on me. I was there for you when you needed me." I shot back, my voice rising. "But you chose to betray me instead. You could have come to me, talked to me, but you didn't. You chose him." Her expression wavered between anger and shame. "I thought I could handle it. I thought I could keep it separate. I didn't want to hurt you. By sleeping with him, by lying to me day in and day out, you think that's not going to hurt?" I could feel my heart racing, the betrayal cutting deeper than I ever imagined. Emily opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. The silence between us was heavy with unspoken words, and I could see the realization dawning on her. "Jake, please," she finally said, her voice breaking. "I never wanted to hurt you. I was just lost, I thought. I thought if I could find some happiness, I could come back to you." "Find happiness?" I echoed, struggling to control my anger. "You think you can find it in someone else's arms? You've shattered everything we built. You don't just get to walk back into my life after this." I stood up, pacing the room, my mind racing. I was done with the back and forth. I had given her more than enough chances, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate me any further. "You need to understand that your actions have consequences. You've put me in a position where I need to decide what to do next." Tears streamed down her face, and for a moment I felt a flicker of sympathy, but it quickly faded. "What do you want, Jake?" she asked, her voice small and broken. "I want you to see the truth. I want you to understand that you can't just waltz back into my life as if nothing happened. You've burned that bridge." She stood up, desperation etched on her face. "Please, I'll change. I'll do anything. Just give me another chance." "Another chance?" I repeated, incredulity lacing my voice. "You've already had your chances, Emily. You threw them away the moment you decided to sleep with someone else." Her shoulders slumped, and I could see the reality of our situation wash over her. "So, what now?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "I need time to think," I replied, my tone firm. "I can't stay here knowing what you've done, not when I feel like a stranger in my own home. I need to reevaluate everything." I could see the pain in her eyes, but I was done with sympathy. I had been the one wronged, and I needed to reclaim my strength. I walked to the door, glancing back at her one last time. "I hope you think about what you've done, because you've not only betrayed me but also thrown away everything we built together." As I stepped out into the cool night air, I felt a mix of relief and sorrow. The confrontation had been painful, but I was finally taking control of my life. I wasn't going to let Emily's choices dictate my happiness any longer. I would take the time I needed to figure out my next steps, and it wouldn't include her unless she was willing to fight for what she had destroyed. I drove through the empty streets, the weight on my chest slowly lifting as I accepted my new reality. I didn't know where this journey would lead, but I was determined to come out stronger, no matter what it took. The laughter I had once shared with Emily felt like a distant memory, but I was ready to write a new chapter for myself, one where I reclaimed my worth and learned to love again, whether that was with her or without her. The following days were a whirlwind of emotions. I moved out of our shared home, renting a small apartment nearby. It was a simple place, nothing fancy, but it felt like my own sanctuary. After years of living in the same space with Emily, it was liberating to have my own space, even if it was filled with memories that haunted me. I spent my time reflecting on everything that had transpired. I felt anger and hurt, but there were moments of clarity where I began to see the situation for what it was. I had been so wrapped up in the idea of marriage that I had ignored the signs, The signs that Emily was unhappy, that I had been too focused on my career, and that I hadn't been the partner she needed. But it didn't excuse her actions. It didn't erase the betrayal. Emily reached out frequently at first, leaving messages pleading for me to come back, promising that she would change. But I didn't respond. I needed space to think, to carefully consider my next steps. I found solace in talking to friends who offered their support and perspective. They reminded me that I was not alone in this. I shared my story with them, and their encouragement fueled my determination to stand strong. One evening, as I was going through some old photos for a distraction, I stumbled across candid shots of Emily and me at various stages of our relationship. Holidays, birthdays, little moments that brought a smile to my face. I felt a pang of nostalgia mixed with bitterness. How could we go from that to this? But just as I was starting to wallow in my thoughts, my phone buzzed with a text. It was from Mark, the last person I expected to hear. From Can We Talk? It read. I stared at the screen for a moment, torn. What could he possibly want? What more was there to discuss? But then I thought about the confrontation we had. He had been blindsided just like I had. Maybe he needed closure too. I reluctantly replied, agreeing to meet up at the same bar where we had confronted each other. When I arrived, I spotted Mark sitting in the same booth as before, his demeanor different this time. He looked less cocky, more subdued. As I slid into the seat across from him, I saw a mix of regret and guilt in his eyes. "Thanks for coming," he said quietly. "I know this is awkward, but I wanted to talk about Emily, about everything." I nodded, unsure of what to say. "What do you want to know?" "I didn't know about you, about your marriage when we started seeing each other," he admitted. "I thought she was single, she never once mentioned you." I laughed bitterly. Of course she didn't. "She's not exactly forthcoming with the truth, is she?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I messed up, man, I really did. I got caught up in something that I thought was real, but I didn't see how hurtful it was to you. I didn't realize I was just a distraction for her. I leaned in, curiosity piqued. "So what now? Do you think you have feelings for her?" He hesitated before answering. "Honestly, I don't know. I thought I did, but after everything I've seen, I don't think I can trust her. And if she lied to you, why wouldn't she lie to me?" His honesty caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting this level of introspection from him. "You're right, she's shown her true colors. She's been playing a dangerous game with both of us, and now we're left to pick up the pieces." Mark nodded, and we fell into a contemplative silence, both trapped in our thoughts. "I came here to say I'm sorry. I should have never been a part of this. I didn't know." I looked him in the eye. "I appreciate the apology, but it doesn't take away the hurt. We're both victims in this mess, and I can't say it's easy to just brush this off." "I get that," he replied, regret etched across his face. "I'm going to step back from this whole situation. I don't want to be involved with her if she's still married. I just wanted to clear the air." "Good idea," I said, feeling a strange sense of camaraderie. "You deserve better than this chaos too." As we talked, I started to see Mark not just as an enemy, but as another human being caught in a web of deceit. We were both moving forward from the wreckage of Emily's choices, and it felt somewhat cathartic to share the burden, even just for a moment. After our conversation, I felt a weight begin to lift. As I walked out of the bar, I realized that I had set some boundaries for myself. I wouldn't let Emily or Mark dictate my life anymore. I was taking back control, and I had to focus on healing. The next step was addressing Emily directly. I couldn't keep avoiding her. We needed to discuss what had happened and what the future held for us, if there even was a future. I sent her a text, asking her to meet me at the park where we used to go for walks. It felt like a neutral ground, a place that held memories but wasn't filled with the weight of our broken home. I knew the conversation would be tough, but it was necessary. I had to confront the reality of our situation head-on, to decide whether to try to rebuild from the ashes or to walk away for good. As I prepared for our meeting, I felt a mix of anticipation and dread. I didn't know what she would say or how she would react, but I knew it was time to finally find closure. The decisions we made that day would shape the rest of our lives, and I was ready to face whatever came next. I arrived at the park early, my heart racing with uncertainty. The sun was setting, casting a warm golden hue over the trees and paths, but the beauty of the moment was lost on me. I paced back and forth, waiting for Emily to arrive, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. This was it, the moment where we'd finally face the reality of our situation. When Emily arrived, she looked different. Her eyes were puffy from crying, and her expression was a mixture of hope and fear. I could see she was nervous, just as I was. As we both stood awkwardly on the path, I felt the weight of what had happened between us settle heavily on my shoulders. "Jake," she began, her voice trembling, "thank you for meeting me." I nodded, trying to keep my emotions in check. "We need to be honest with each other, Emily. There's no point in sugar-coating this anymore." She took a deep breath, and for a moment it felt like we were back in our old rhythm, two people who loved each other. But I quickly reminded myself of the betrayal that had shattered that rhythm. "I've talked to Mark since the last time we spoke." Her eyes widened with surprise, and she opened her mouth to speak, but I held up my hand to stop her. "I know how you felt about him, and I know you're trying to make excuses. But this isn't about him anymore. It's about us, the trust that's been destroyed." "I know," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I'm so sorry for everything. I never wanted to hurt you. I was feeling lost and made terrible choices. I thought I could fix things with him, but it only made things worse. Emily, you've hurt me in a way that's hard to come back from. It's not just the affair, it's the lies, the deception. I can't just pretend everything is okay after what you've done." My voice was steady, but the pain crept back in, threatening to break my resolve. "I regret it all, Jake. I've spent countless nights trying to understand why I did what I did. I thought I could find happiness elsewhere, but I see now that I was wrong. You were always there for me, and I threw that away." Tears streamed down her cheeks, and for a moment I felt a twinge of sympathy for her. "But regret doesn't change what happened," I said, my voice firm. "You chose to step outside our marriage, and now I have to choose what's best for me." "But I love you," she pleaded, stepping closer. "I don't want to lose you. I'll do whatever it takes to make things right." Love. The word hung in the air like a fragile thread. I had loved her deeply, but now that love felt tainted by betrayal. I needed to consider what truly mattered to me. "You've said that before, and yet here we are. I want to believe you, but trust is hard to rebuild. It's broken." She nodded, understanding my pain. "I would give anything to make it up to you. I know I can't erase what I've done, but I want to try, if you'll let me." I took a step back, trying to find clarity amid my swirling emotions. "I need time, Emily. Time to think about what I want and whether I can forgive you, but I can't do it right now. You've hurt me too deeply." "I understand," she said, her voice breaking. "I'll give you the space you need. Just know that I'll always love you, and I'm here if you want to talk." We stood there for a moment, the silence stretching between us as I felt the weight of our shared history. I realized this moment was not just about our relationship, but also about my own growth and healing. "Maybe we both need to find ourselves away from each other," I said finally. "I need to focus on my own life, my own happiness. I can't be with you while I'm still trying to pick up the pieces." She nodded, knowing the truth of my words. "I'll always be here for you, Jake. I hope one day you can forgive me." I turned to walk away, feeling a mix of sadness and relief. As I left the park, I took a deep breath, letting the cool air fill my lungs. I was stepping into a new chapter of my life, one where I could reclaim my sense of self and rebuild from the ashes of what had been. In the weeks that followed, I focused on healing. I took time to reflect on my goals, my passions, and what truly made me happy. I reconnected with friends, explored new hobbies, and even took short trips that reminded me of who I was outside of my marriage. I learned to appreciate my own company, rediscovering parts of myself that had been overshadowed by Emily's needs and desires. Emily continued to reach out, and while it was hard to ignore the pang of nostalgia for what we once I had to remember the pain. I had set boundaries, and I was learning to uphold them. I wasn't ready to forgive her yet, but I was ready to forgive myself for letting it happen. In the end, I understood that love is complicated. It can bring joy but also pain, and sometimes love alone isn't enough to keep a relationship intact. I had grown from this experience, and while I didn't know what the future held, whether Emily and I would find our way back to each other or go our separate paths, I knew that I would be okay. As I stood on the edge of a new beginning, I felt empowered. I would not let her laughter be the last. I would reclaim my own. In this chapter of my life, I would find joy, strength, and ultimately a sense of peace.